Today I'm sharing a circumference body measurement that is proving to be a game changer in bodice fitting. This is a measurement that I haven't seen anywhere before, and I'm not saying it's not out there somewhere, but I thought about this because of the way my muslin was fitting me. I knew that my shoulder measurement was correct, and I knew my ease across my front was correct. But when I put my sleeves on, it looked like my shoulder seams were too long and everything was tight. Now that's a little bit of a conundrum, because if you think about what I just said, my shoulder seams look like they were pulling off of my shoulder, but it was also tight. So I got to thinking about what could possibly be going on here, and what I realized was there's a circumference measurement I have not been taking advantage of, which I think could help me figure out what I needed to adjust to get my shirt to fit properly. I work with Efficient Workflow for bodice fitting. If you're interested in checking that out, I'm putting a link in the description below to the series and to the PDF companion. So using that method, you start up at the top, you make sure your upper back, your neck, your shoulders, your high bust or chest are all fitting properly, and then you move down and you do the base of the armhole, you do the bust start, and then you go to waist and hem. So I had gone through this process and I was feeling pretty confident about my muslin until I got the sleeves on. So looking at myself in the mirror, I got the idea that the fabric that was, around my high bust, around my shoulder, above my bicep, like really up in here in my shoulder, and across my back, had a problem because things were not fitting. So what I did was I took a simple measurement, and I am coining this measurement the bear hugger. Now the reason why I'm calling it the bear hugger is because I get the impression of someone reaching behind you and hugging you from behind like a bear hug. So let me show you how to do this measurement, and I'm going to be using my thing that I'm very excited about here, my digital tape measure. If you haven't seen this little beauty, I'm going to put a link in the description for that as well, because it makes measuring things by yourself so much easier. So I'm going to pull out a lot of inches here. I'm going to wrap it around my back like this, and then I'm going to make sure it's not twisted, and I'm going to stick the tab in the little hole in the base of the tape measure, and then I'm going to push the button, and I think what you can see is it wraps around me nice and firmly, and you want to make sure that it's hitting you at the same level from shoulder to shoulder. So obviously I'm not in front of my mirror, so I can't see, but from your tip of your shoulder down about 3 inches, across your high bust and across your upper back, and I'll just turn around here to show you. Okay, so across, parallel to the floor. All right, so after you take that measurement, and I'm just gonna verify here that it's as snug as possible, and then I'm gonna release the tab, and I'm gonna look and see, and I'm getting 46 3/4 inches. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna write that down. So what I've captured is my circumference measurement, including my shoulders around the high bust upper back level. That's the bear hugger measurement, right? I'm gonna make a little, I'm just going to say 46 3/4 is what mine is. Then what you do is you compare that to your pattern pieces. Working along with my fitting, I had already checked my front and back bodice, and I'm just going to show you here. This is just a little front and a little back from, this is the shoulder, neck, and so my high bust measurement, I measured that. So I'm just going to show you here. You want to get rid of your seam allowances. So let's say this one measures 6 3/4. So 6 3/4 times 2 equals 12, 13.5. So you have to double it. In the back I had 7 1/4, so that's 14.5, you know, if you double it. And then you also take your sleeve pattern and you measure about the distance down on your shoulder that you measured, you know, your body. So, you know, somewhere down here. This is a half scale, so I'm just gonna, you know, and of course get rid of your 1/2 inch seam allowances. You measure that. 1 2 3 4 5. We'll say 5.5. 1 2 3 4 5. 5.5. So that's 10. That's 11. Okay. So then what you do is you take all those measurements and you add them up and you compare. So what happened was when I added up all of my measurements and compared it to my bear hugger measurement, I only had a 1/2 inch of ease. So what do you do with that information? I only had a 1/2 inch of ease. You can probably imagine across your body or around your body where, you know, things move, right? It's not stationary. When you pick up your arm, the top of your arm and your shoulder moves. So you need ease there for range of motion and for comfort. And I've been playing with this in my in-person bodice classes and on Zoom. And I think the sweet spot is, you know, between, if you're in the smaller sizes, maybe 2.5, 3 inches, up to maybe even 4 inches of ease around the body to be comfortable and have range of motion. And also, so the armhole isn't being pulled off the shoulder because there's no ease for it to stay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you my personal pattern and I'm going to show you how I fixed it. And then I'm going to show you step by step how to fix the sleeve. What I did was I cut along my stitching line and I cut here through so I could pull this out. I made a pivot here and here so I could pull the armhole out and add about a 1/2 inch of ease on my back, which actually is a whole inch. So that gave me 1 extra inch of ease. I still needed almost 2 more inches of ease because I felt like I needed 3 inches or a little more than 3 inches of ease around my body for comfort. So I fixed the back and then I also added ease to the cap. So if you look and see here, I added 3/4 of an inch, which gave me another 1.5 inches. So I had the inch added across the back plus 3/4 on each sleeve up near the, you know, shoulder, which gave me another 1.5 inches to add to the 1/2 inch I already had, which gave me a total of 3 inches. And what I want to show you now is, this is why you're seeing double today, because remember, my ditto form is me, meaning the shape of my ditto form is virtually the same. And what I want to show you here is, you can see that now, after I did this adjustment, there's no pulling and everything fits really nicely. There's no arm in the sleeve, but basically it alleviated the tightness in the top of my shirt and it made it far more comfortable. So to review, once you get your number or your difference, and if it's less than 2.5, 3, even 4 inches, then you need to decide where to make the changes in your pattern. So you go back and you look at, you compare your 1/2 high bust measurement in the front, your 1/2 upper back measurement in the back, and make sure you have enough ease there. And if those things need adjusting, go ahead and do that. And then to adjust the sleeve, I just want to show you how to do that because it's very similar to adding room in the bicep, except you're doing the adjustment a little bit higher. All right, so if we're looking at my sleeve, the bicep line is down here. We want to make the adjustment up higher, about the same distance from the top of the cap. Okay, so about here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure down that amount. So let's say it was about here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw a guideline there. And I'm going to cut that top of the cap off. All right, and before I do that, I'm going to cut out the sleeve so I can have this fabric, this paper. And I'm going to cut this off. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut through the cap and hinge up at the top. And I'm going to spread it the amount I need to add. Now remember, I said I needed to add about 3/4 of an inch. So I get 1.5 inches when you double it. I'm going to draw a guideline on the paper I'm using to fill it in, because that way I can spread it evenly on the back and the front of the cap. So because I need 3/4 of an inch, I'm going to spread both sides about 3/8 of an inch away from center. All right, and then I'm going to cut the bottom of the sleeve straight through to the wrist edge, like that. And we're going to attach it. But what I want to show you is when we go to attach this, notice I can't touch here, right? Because if I do, I'm adding a lot of ease and length to my cap. So when you put this back together, you want to line it up so you're lining up the cap itself. So notice how I'm lining up here where the cap is, and then I'm also lining up over here where the cap is, and then the wrist edges meet back at 0 down here. And you want to make sure everything stays nice and even like this. So I'm just going to stick a piece of tape over here. I'm going to stick a piece of tape down here. And then I'm going to stick a piece of tape right here to hold everything together. So you can see what I've done now is I've added all of this room, you know, right in here to relieve the tightness in the cap. Okay, and I haven't changed the cap length so it's not affecting the armhole. So you don't need to change your armholes. You're just adding more ease right here, okay? And that's what made this super comfortable for me. And I just want to say that I have tested this on a few different, quite a few students at this point, and it's really given us good results. Now you might be saying to me through the screen, well, you shortened your cap a little bit. Yes, I did. And I'm just going to show you here. So, you know, if I trace through like this and like this part right here was overlapped, so I did shorten my cap. But that goes hand in hand with the new way I measure cap height using the stitching line on your shoulder and the stitching line on the base of your armhole when you have your muslin on. So I'm going to put a link to the description. I'm going to put a link in the description below to that tutorial as well, because when you measure that way, it's giving you what the cap height is from the stitching line of your muslin down to your stitching line at the base of your arm. And it seems to be adding just a little bit of extra wiggle room there, which is nice because you can always pull it out of the cap when you're working on your muslin, but you can't add easily if it's too short. So even though you're losing a little bit of cap height here, if you measure your cap height with the method that I shared in the tutorial that I've now linked in the description below, I think you'll be okay. So that's how I fixed my shirt. And again, just to show you here, you can see that there is no tightness through here. And if you look at the back, you know, there's no tightness through here. And if I were to raise my arms, I mean, I really can't because I don't have them in there. This is a very comfortable shirt now, and I have plenty of ease. I'm trying to wrap up my bodice series, my bodice draft fit and design series. So I wanted to make sure I shared this with you because I have to say this is really a game changer in terms of when you get to the end and something's not exactly right and things are tight and you're not sure what's happening. This really will help you get to the finish line of a beautifully fitted shirt. So if you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. And I want to thank everybody for taking a minute to watch. Have a wonderful rest of your day.